As of today, the vote count for regions 10 and 6 basically ended. There are just one box remaining for each of the regions as far as we've been told this evening. So that means on Thursday, all 12 of the recount stations could be dedicated to District 4, which is the largest electoral district, with just over 320 boxes remaining to be counted. And so at the current rate of the recount, we could see the process ending on Sunday, all things being equal. You never know what could happen, as we've been seeing the situation constantly evolves. But at the current rate, the vote recount should be completed on Sunday. Now, there are more interesting developments that are coming out as the boxes continue to be counted. We want to talk to Ray Lamb from the Citizenship Initiative to give us some perspectives of some of the issues coming out of the recount today. But first, Rhonda, can you give us an update of what's happening in the tabulation center?
We are a little bit behind in terms of catching up with the number of boxes counted, but we're starting half an hour earlier tomorrow, which we hope to clear that backlog. And so at this point, as you know, we're always behind. I usually say about 45 to 50 boxes. So hopefully tomorrow we're able to catch up, and that will keep us on track. For all intents and purposes, even after the counting is finished, tabulation will still have approximately an extra day to complete their process. Today we had the wrapping up, so to speak, of 6 and 10. I believe it's 1 or 2 more boxes to go. And so tomorrow we should see exclusively all 12 stations counting 4. And so like you were saying earlier, I think Sunday, the latest maybe Monday morning, we should be wrapping that up.
Thanks, Rhonda. Now, one of the things we noted today was one of the boxes in Sophia coming up with 82 rejected ballots. Could you explain to us what happened?
Well, we flagged it since the night of elections. We saw it so one of the Sophia Nursery School boxes that popped up with 80 rejected ballots, and that was an unusual number for us. So we were hoping today that we would have, kind of bring that number down. Maybe it was a lack of stamping. We've seen over the course of things, the person might have put the X on the symbol and those kinds of things. What we discovered today was that it was literally a lack of stamp. However, when you looked at the regional ballots, you discovered 2 stamps on them. And then we were able to see a note written by the PO to the arrow in the poll book, explaining that she discovered during, in the course of the day, that the ballots were being stamped wrong, folded wrong, and therefore both stamps were ending up on the regional end. And so she made a note, but by the time she had corrected it, from the APO stamping, 82 people had suffered, were disenfranchised for those purposes. I believe the numbers are 69 for APNO AFC and 12 for the PPP.
Could you explain for us how the folding happens?
Essentially, when you get into the ballot station, the APO, writes your serial number on the counterfoil, tears out that ballot, and then folds it. They stamp the top, they stamp at the bottom, and ideally when it's folded, one stamp should land on that general portion and the second one on the regional. If it's folded incorrectly, when you stamp, both could end up on the general or both could end up on the regional, and that's what happened.
So if the PO noticed early on, the presiding officer, if he notices that his assistant got it wrong, wasn't there a route for them to put the stamp on the general?
Well, you see, at that point, everything is in the ballot box already, and you can't open those ballot boxes to go back to stamp them. Now, what was interesting is I'm not sure, there's no mention of it in the poll book in terms of seeking guidance, but again, too, it depends on what the PO would have done and when it was discovered. So ultimately, you can't go back into that ballot box until the end of the night, and the law is very specific. It has to have that 6-digit stamp on it. So I'm not sure if any guidance was sought. I wasn't there, but it means that 82 people's, and the votes were valid in that sense minus the stamp. 82 people suffered from that wrong folding. But we've seen that across many other boxes, because you're trying to figure out why regional has a stamp at the top and at the bottom. And it would also explain the disparity we were seeing, where regionals had 2 stamps, but general did not.
Rhonda, we're continuing to see objections about people being ticked off as not having voted. Ticked off as having voted but not actually in Guyana. Could you talk to us about whether some of those came up today as well?
I saw someone post about a lady that she was actually present on E-Day and she was objected to. And she seems to be someone very important. Yesterday we had that as well with one of the attorneys who was an observer on E-Day. But then I also saw, I can't express for the validity of it, but I saw a letter addressed on social media to the chair of a gentleman who claimed that he was out of the country, and so he would like to clear his name and have GCOM investigate, because he didn't want to be accused of electoral fraud. Now, whether that's a valid letter or not, I'm not sure. But those allegations continue to be made, and they've been ongoing. I doubt they're stopping anytime soon.
Now, could I get TCI's position on what should be done with those objections made? We know that after this recount is completed and the chief elections officer has his 10 certificates after all the votes are tabulated, he has to do a summary of the objections that were raised, or a summary of the observation reports. What is TCI's position? What should happen with those observations?
At this point, I mean, for us, we're looking at the numbers, how many persons. The problem we have is that the lists are inconsistent. So, because you have multiple marked lists of electors, and so because the PO list is not clearly identified in many of the boxes I've sat in the count, it's hard to identify which is the PO list, and therefore that would be the definitive count. And we've seen lists were off by 20, 30. So ideally, it's a process that isn't foolproof, because you could tick one for the other, those kinds of things, and I did not see a cross, at least in the stations I worked in, I did not see a cross correlation between all of the lists to ensure that, this person had voted across all 4 or 5 or how many lists of electors. So it's a tricky situation for us. We're waiting to be guided by GCOM on it, because ultimately it's going to come down to whether a tick or a line through a voter can stand up in court. And then, of course, there is, we've heard through the grapevine, things like that. Persons are saying, well, maybe they'll have to mark up the boxes for those ones. I saw today again that, multiple lists were sent again to GCOM. So ultimately, I'm not sure. Again, I'm not a lawyer, but I'm not sure how that tick will stand up in court if we were to come to that. So we have to wait for guidance from GCOM on that.
But do you foresee, a situation where, for example, those boxes are reopened to check if indeed those persons were marked off as having voted, would stall the declaration of a win in these elections? It's been 3 months.
Elections are interesting in Guyana. But the only thing I can guarantee you is we're going to have a court case. This is just how it's going to go. Whichever side gets a win, so to speak, the other side will file something. That's the only thing I'm willing to take bets on at this point. Anything else is a toss-up, because we're in uncharted waters. It's hard to explain, unless you're sitting in there watching it unfold, it's hard to explain, but I can guarantee you, pretty much sure we're going to court.
Thank you very much, Rhonda, for your comments tonight. We were speaking with Rhonda Lamb from the Citizenship Initiative as we continue to get perspectives on the national vote recount taking place here at the Arthur Chong Conference Center. Now, earlier on the day, the chairman of a new and united Guyana, Timothy Jonas, spoke with the media. Now, we go back to those observation reports and the objections being raised by APNU plus AFC that a number of persons were out of the country but were marked off as having voted. According to Mr. Jonas, and this has been a position of a new and united Guyana, that GCOM is not designed as a body to take up those objections. It is not a court, and so it cannot accept evidence. And so what he is saying is that those observations basically should not prevent a declaration of these results. At least he said that the observation reports should not be used so as to invalidate these elections, and that in fact GCOM does not have a constitutional route beyond this process, that it has to declare a winner of the elections.
There is no constitutional provision, and the drafters do not contemplate that possibility. One party wins, the other party does not. The other parties do not. And I I can go this far. I can say that suppose there's a tie. Suppose by some miracle 700,000 people vote and 350,000 vote for you and 350,000 vote for me. Suppose by some miracle that happens. We know the chances of that are worse than winning the lotto. There's actually provision that you go and you do it by lot. You go to the chancellor and you do the equivalent of flipping a coin. So that is catered for. That eventuality, an almost impossible eventuality, is catered for. But it is not catered. The GCOM says, on my own record, having done my work and having my record and having counted the votes, I'm not going to declare on my own record. There's no provision like that. I've seen a lot of discussion about the flaws in the system. The system of elections in Guyana is a very good system. You have a list and the list is updated with a transparent process. Just to be absolutely safe, before the elections, you're going to post up the list in the neighborhoods. And you say, if anybody got a problem with any names they see, come tell us. This time they had 49 days to do it. Now, I'm sure you will agree with me that both APNU and PPP would have looked at those lists and laundered them till they were clean as could be. If they knew any problems with those lists, they would have dealt with it. And they had the resources, I'm sure they did. A good system. And then when you turn up to vote, we talk about showing the ID, comparing your face because your face is there. We talk about the presence of the APNU agent, the PPP agent, the GCOM agent, the local observers, the international observers. It's a good system. And then at that same place of poll, the presiding officer counts those ballots and generates the statement of poll and nails it up on the door outside for everybody to see. Our system is so good that when the corrupt individual within the system tried to undermine it, he was caught immediately. That's how good the system is. So when you talk about a flawed system, our system is not flawed. But there were individuals within the system who tried to undermine it, but demonstrated how good the system was because they were caught right away. You can never make sure that you only have angels and saints working for you. But the beauty of a good system is you immediately identify them when they act as a saint or an angel should not act.
Timothy Jonas from A New and United Guyana speaking there. We can now confirm with you that the recount tally from today was 84 boxes for Region 4, 40 boxes were counted, for Region 6, 20 boxes were counted, and for Region 10, 24 boxes were counted. So that means that one box remains to be counted for District 6 or Region 6, and one box remains to be counted for Region 10 or District 10. And so that will be wrapped up early tomorrow morning so that all 12 recount stations would go towards the counting of ballots for District number 4. Now, the counting has crossed the 2,000 mark. You would recall that there were 2,339 polling stations on March 2nd. And so with the amount of boxes so far counted, it means that just 325 would remain to be counted starting on Thursday. And with the current rate of the recount, we could see the actual recount being completed by Sunday evening. Now, after the boxes are counted, a statement of recount is then produced and then the tabulation process takes place. Now that tabulation process usually obviously lags behind the actual recount, and so if the recount is completed by Sunday, we could imagine that the tabulation center will need at least a day to complete its tabulation, putting in all the figures, making sure that the additions are corrected, and the declaration of a winner of these results could be announced. And so that's where we stand at the moment. We will have more news for you after the break. Welcome back. You're watching the newsroom. We're live at the Arthur Chung Conference Center. We turn now to that murder at Atlantic Gardens. Recently, a post-mortem examination conducted on the woman found that she was struck multiple times to the head and to her right rib. She was killed at her home on Monday. Bibi Katoon has the details.
The body of 61-year-old Sati Bikari was found in a pool of blood at her Atlantic Gardens East Coast Demerara home on Monday afternoon. The post-mortem examination was conducted on Wednesday at the Georgetown Public Hospital's mortuary by government pathologist Dr. Nihal Singh. The results showed that the woman died from brain hemorrhage as a result of multiple trauma to the head, compounded by multiple fractures to the right side rib. The body was identified by the woman's cousins. The woman has 3 children, but they all reside overseas. Neighbors told the newsroom that they heard the woman screaming for murder, and so they contacted the police, who responded promptly. The suspect, who is said to be a close friend of the woman, was hiding in the house and was arrested after police used tear gas to flush him out and subsequently broke down the door. Regional Commander Assistant Police Commissioner Royston Jr. on Wednesday told the newsroom that the investigation is still ongoing. He declined to comment on whether investigators confirmed the motive of the murder or obtained a confession. Bibi Katoon, Newsroom.
Now, grade 6 students who will be writing the National Grade 6 assessment on July 1st and 2nd are expected to return to school on June 15th to prepare for those exams, but they'll be returning to school with strict physical distancing guidelines in place, the Ministry of Education announced today. Approximately 14,730 students are registered to sit the exams, both from private and public schools. According to a correspondence seen by the newsroom, the Department of Education has advised primary school teachers that the students will be at schools on Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays from 9 to 1 in the afternoon. They will be expected to wear their own masks and walk with their own hand sanitizers. The students will be returning to prepare for the examinations, but the Guyana Teachers Union is concerned that some students could be at a disadvantage. The president of the union, Mark Light, spoke with the newsroom.
Protocols that they put forward were decent, but we remain concerned that Guyana still having cases reported. Teachers would have to engage these children for another 2 to 3 weeks. So bring them back in line with a school arrangement, since they've been out of school for more than 2 months. And that is a concern at the level of preparation, bearing in mind that while some children might have gotten a chance to engage in an online platform, not all students had that privilege. And as such, we can't say that there has been equity along the line where students were engaged. It will have an impact on children realizing their true potential, because here you are asking children who are relaxed for almost 2.5 months or close to 3 months, doing nothing at home. Basically, some of them are not doing anything, some of them are doing little, to come into the exam setting and perform to their true potential, and that would not be something that would be easily realized.
Now, the Ministry of Public Health this afternoon announced that after 3 straight days of tests, there have been no new COVID-19 cases. We'll have the details just after the break. Welcome back. You're watching the newsroom now for COVID-19 updates. The Ministry of Public Health today reported that after 3 consecutive days of testing, no new cases of COVID-19 was recorded. And so that means the total number of active cases remain at 71. The Deputy Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Karen Gordon Boyle, gave the ministry's update today, and she had a particular sentiment to express to persons regarding those who have recovered from the disease. She said that they should be shown compassion and should not be discriminated against because they no longer have the virus.
As of today, of the 27 tests done, there are no new cases. Our COVID-19 deaths remain at 12, and the number of confirmed cases, 153. To date, The total number of persons tested is 1,699, with the total number of negative cases being 1,546. We currently have 70 persons that have recovered, 71 active cases in institutional isolation, 2 patients in the COVID ICU, and 25 persons in institutional quarantine. Fellow Guyanese, we wish to reiterate that isolation and quarantine facilities are not the same. Everyone who receives a positive test result will be placed in isolation. Persons in quarantine are those persons who were in very close contact with someone who tested positive, persons returning to Guyana, and someone who is suspected case awaiting results to confirm his or her status. The duration of someone's stay in isolation is not fixed. It depends on how fast the body fights off the virus. All persons in isolation are cleared after having 2 negative tests 24 hours apart. Persons who are cleared and allowed to go home are not infectious, which simply means that they cannot transmit the virus to anyone else because the virus is no longer active in their body. With that, we ask that you show some compassion to your brothers and sisters who have recovered from this disease. Their journey was not an easy one, and they need your support. My fellow Guyanese, we ask that if you are experiencing any symptoms of COVID-19, or if you have been in contact with someone tested positive, that you utilize the services available to you and call the hotline. Make contact with your health facility nearest to you or visit one of the COVID-19 facilities. Continue to be your brothers and sisters' keeper by encouraging them to wear their mask, wash or sanitize their hands, and maintain physical distancing of at least 6 feet.
The Guyanese community in Queens, New York has been hard hit by COVID-19, but even so, they're reaching out to help others. Jennifer Galish Jabbar and her husband Zahir continue a series of reports for the newsroom on how Guyanese and other West Indian communities are coping and how they're reaching out to help others.
Stranded Guyanese woman has lost her husband to the coronavirus while on vacation in New York City. Devastated and abruptly finding herself on the margins with no one to lean on, the Richmond Hill South Ozone Park Lions Club has come to her aid, as well as countless other stranded Guyanese and immigrant families affected by COVID-19. I met with the president of the Lions, Romeo Hidlal, who related some of the horror stories he has experienced since the outbreak began.
Mother and son who is in New York, who's there who came on vacation with her husband, of course. Husband passed away from COVID-19, and they have nowhere to stay. They have nothing, pretty much nothing. And just by hearing that and reaching out to these people, and we try to take care of them as much as we can. But it's so sad that you came up here on vacation, and then you lost your loved one, and then you're stuck here. You can't do anything, and you have no one.
Hitlal, who is also president of the People's Progressive Party civic arm in New York, with close to 20 years actively serving the community, says he has seen it all and has literally stopped counting the number of people he knew personally that died from COVID-19 as it became profoundly overbearing.
And I'm not exaggerating, over 100 personal people that I know personally. Family members, I've lost about 4 different family members. My uncle, my cousin just recently passed, and 2 other family members. But we've lost members from the Lions Club. We have lost members from the Lions District in general. We've lost so many friends. I personally have lost so many friends, and it's really, really tough.
Hitlal recounted one COVID-19 death, which was most shocking for him.
We had a wedding, and the wedding was canceled. So we decided to all meet up together. And this was actually March 2nd, Saturday, March 2nd. And we met, and a week later, my friend was in the hospital. And 3 weeks later, he passed. And then, a few weeks after that, he was cremated. And that was, I couldn't even go on the, now it's a Zoom funeral. I couldn't even look at the Zoom funeral because I remember him, we're all together celebrating with the wives, and everybody was just there, just having a good time.
Hitlal is on the ground with many other volunteers who, together, shoulder many responsibilities, oftentimes finding themselves in new, unexplored territory, describing this coronavirus as unlike anything they've seen.
Myself and the Richmond Hill South Ozone Park Lions Club, and also members of the community, has been really helping us to provide these things. We've been doing outreach, we've been doing food giveaway, grocery giveaway. We've been going as far as helping family directly, because there's a lot of stranded family that's here that can't travel back to Guyana because they're stuck here. Also, there's a lot of families that lost their loved ones.
The COVID-19 measures have been extended for another 2 weeks, but President of the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Nicholas Boyer, believes that a more structured plan is needed to reopen the economy in a phased manner. There are 71 COVID-19 cases at this point, but Mr. Boyer believes that the economy should be reopened when there is less than 50 cases.
We would like to have that plan, discussed, and have a COVID-19 task force that is a little bit more populated with professionals rather than just politicians, and have kind of a model that says, okay, at this many infections, we will continue lockdown orders. Under that level of infections, we will start phased reopening. 0 active infections, we will, allow movement freely, let's say. I would say I would feel comfortable at about 50 and fewer active infections for us to be opening up. If you compare and contrast, you have other islands who took a very structured approach and a very pragmatic approach, and they're now going back into opening up their economies fully with almost no active or very low amounts of active infections. And we've been hobbling along with a higher number of active infections than some of the other territories that are opening up. And we are, so the economy has taken a hit because activity slowed down, but we still have a high number of active infections.
You're watching the newsroom. We're live at the Arthur Chong Conference Centre. A reminder that just 326 ballot boxes remain to be counted in this national vote recount, with the People's Progressive Party ahead by thousands of votes, with those remaining boxes yet to be counted. The vote count for districts 6 and 10 should be wrapped up tomorrow. There are just 1 boxes each for those districts to be counted, and then all 12 counting stations will then be dedicated to District 4 for the completion of the vote recount, which we have been reporting as the rate of the recount has been going on for the past 20-something days. It seems likely that the process should be completed by Sunday, the latest Monday. That's it from me, Neil Marks. You can join us after the break for the financial weather and bridge reports and the sportscast with Avinash Ramzan. Take care.